Healthcare is too expensive. Employers are offsetting costs onto their employees. Who will make health benefits affordable for hardworking Americans and their families? You will. This is the Empowering Plans Podcast, a show dedicated to helping you once again emphasize the benefit in benefit plan. Now prepare to learn, plan, save, and protect with the FIA Group.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Empowering Plans with the FIA Group. I am your co-host, Adam Russo, the CEO and co-founder of this amazing company. Ron, you realize this could be 20 years in about 2 weeks.
You know, that means in one more year, the FIA Group can legally drink alcohol.
We still can't drink.
No. We need a fake ID.
I think we could join the military, right?
Yeah.
Can we own a gun?
Sure.
Well, not in Massachusetts, but we could own guns.
Massachusetts, yeah.
Folks, as always, with me is the ever-amazing, what is your title again? Executive Vice President.
Yeah, I'm working on Senior Executive Vice President.
Executive Vice
the
President.
Next one, yeah.
Ron E. Peck. Say hello, Ron.
Hello, Ron.
As always, we could not do this podcast without our dungeon master himself. Say hello to Pat Santos. Say hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat.
Pat has been saying, 3 or 4 words now every podcast. We've actually upped it from 1 word.
Yeah, he's got his foot in the door. He's working on it.
He's there. Folks, we are excited today. This is a special podcast. It's not every day we get a legend in the industry. All I can tell you is this, Ron.
You're saying Brady is not a legend in the industry?
Brady's a legend in his own mind.
There you go.
Brady is a legend to those future leaders that he's brainwashed.
Oh, yeah.
But this is an actual legend. Folks, on Saturday nights, every Saturday night for the past, decade, I'm assuming, I wait. I look at my phone. I have my phone next to me. No matter what phone it was, the iPhone 1, the iPhone 5, the iPhone 10. Every Saturday night about 11 o'clock, I just wait for that inbox, for that MyHealthGuide newsletter to appear. And every week, it does.
It's
Ron,
a constant companion.
It's always there. Can you imagine what would happen if one Saturday night you just did not get that email?
Well, I can tell you exactly what would happen. One day, for some reason, it went to my spam, to my junk mail. I didn't realize this. I had a fit. I threw my phone out the window. I was crying. And then I checked my junk.
And it was there.
It was there.
You checking your junk all the time on Saturday nights,
Check
Ron,
your junk every Saturday from now on.
Very good to know. Folks, with us for the first time, we are honored to have the presence of Ernest A. Clevenger III, or as we like to call Ernie. Say hello to Ernie Clevenger. Say hello, Ernie.
Hello, Adam. Hello, Ron.
Not the way you're supposed to say it, but that's okay. He obviously doesn't listen to our podcast, Ron.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I've taught everybody to be quite literal. You see, the joke is Adam says, say hello, Ron, and I say hello, Ron, because I'm saying what he tells me to say. Ernie, it's all about following instructions, man. This is like the SAT. Bring out your number 2 pencil.
Guys, he's the president of the company. He
does
doesn't
what he
follow
wants. You're
instructions. So, Ron, you want to give a little intro on our friend here, Ernie?
Yeah, so apparently Ernie is the president of CareHere, LLC. Ernie, it's CareHere or Care There? Because if you say CareHere, then it's there and not here. But CareHere, LLC, very interesting work that you do on-site medical, wellness, pharmacy management for employers, on-site clinics, gets a lot of news. As Adam mentioned, however, the reason why you are so well known here is because you are the publisher of the MyHealthGuide newsletter, which, frankly, I think of the two, you probably tell your family about CareHere, but amongst us, it's all about the newsletter. Ernie, thank you for being such a major part of the industry, really someone who's been a source of information for everybody and an innovator, I think, and hopefully that's what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Hey, I have a quick story. So once Ernie actually asked me to speak at a conference. It was just once, Ron. I've never been invited back. I can understand why. But what I couldn't believe is just how huge his organization is. We're talking about over 1 million appointments annually, over 200 clinics, 26 states. Ernie, how'd you do it? How'd this all happen? Can you just give us some background? What has made you so successful? What can you tell our listeners? No one's going to be able to emulate you. No one's going to be you. But what was it? How did it all happen? How'd you get to where you are? And did you sometimes just open your eyes and how in the world did this happen to me?
Yes, those questions occur often, and you have to pinch yourself to make certain that still breathing. But we started with 1 clinic and went to 2, went to 3, and a fascinating thing happened. Patients started getting better. Cost began to go down. And when compared to the medical trend in the market, after 18 months of having a clinic, it was cut in half. And then As it approached 3 years and on into 5 years, a mature clinic, it comes close to 0 or 2%. So the trend is favorably impacted. That's why the employers, our clients, continue to renew us. But at the end of the day, it's helping that patient, that employee, that family member become healthier.
Okay, Ernie, this is Ron. I got a question for you. CareHere, you mentioned it started with one clinic. When was that?
It was 2004, and the clinic was in Tampa, Florida.
2004. And I want everybody who's listening to recognize 2004, it's not yesterday. Okay, it's been a while, right? Actually, not too long after the...
It's when Ron started working at FIA.
It is. Momentous time in everyone's history. Think about this. Today, when we're talking to industry members, employers, people who are involved in healthcare, the idea of on-site clinics, concierge medicine, direct primary care, DPC, sort of these new innovative ways of bringing healthcare to the employee, to the plan member. They're talking about it now in 2020 like it's this innovative, great idea. You have been doing this since 2004. I got to ask, now that this is something that's on the tip of everyone's tongue, despite the fact that you've been doing it for the better part of 2 decades, what's next? How do you ride this wave?
Well, the on-site clinic is a good step along the way of taking medicine to the patient rather than asking the patient to come to medicine, going to a doctor's appointment, going someplace. So that's good news. But once you have that relationship with the patient, you've got an opportunity to inform about doctor's orders, about taking medications, about changing a lifestyle. And not all do, but there's enough that do, particularly among chronic patients, that begins to impact or change the needle on the overall cost. Now, to your question of what happens next. Okay, if we've taken medicine to the workplace in the form of a clinic, how do we take medicine onto where the patient is, to where the employee, the family member is, whether they're at home, they're traveling, they're flying, they're driving, or whatever? So these patient-reported devices that we wear and grow, we're finding an amazing response by remote patient monitoring that has a favorable impact far beyond what we expected.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What do you mean by more than you expected?
Sure. Let's take a group of chronic patients who have high blood pressure. These are hypertensive patients. When you go to your doctor, Adam and Ron, you probably get a blood pressure check within the first few seconds of sitting down.
Right.
But the evidence, the medical guideline is you should be sitting for 5 minutes before the systolic and diastolic, the blood pressure is checked so that you settle. So most of the clinical findings on vitals are performed and you get an abnormal high. Well, that forms a clinical basis that's going to do something. It's going to put you on lisinopril or some other kind of medication. Far better to sit for 5 minutes, but that doesn't happen. Even better than sitting for 5 minutes before you take a vital check is to get a longitudinal study, do it on a daily basis, so that as we live our lives, we perform our jobs at work, whatever, we've now got a trend line that is far more indicative and more clinically sound than an episodic event at the time you go to the doctor once or twice a year.
I mean, you're right about that for what a good reason, too, there. Like, think about it. You go to the doctor, it's not every day. You're nervous. You could be a little stressed out.
Sure.
Something could have happened. That morning, your kids might have been sick. You might have had a little stressful morning, with your spouse. Who knows what it might be? So it makes a lot of sense,
Sure.
Ron?
Ernie, I actually have a personal example. Many people know that I am a type 1 diabetic. I have been since I was 9 years old. Can you believe it?
No.
Since I was 9 years old. And, for many, many years, you're going to see the specialist, endocrinologist. They're checking your A1C, which, for those who don't know, that's how they determine sort of what your average blood glucose is over a certain period of time. And when I was getting that exam, Ernie, it was coming back, a 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, which, if you know anything about this, is an excellent number. So they were saying you're in great health. Your A1C is fantastic. So eventually, to your point, Ernie, they developed this idea of a continuous glucose monitor where you wear it and it literally is showing you your blood glucose 24/7. As it turns out, Adam, I was having highs and lows, but the average was excellent. But by seeing overall through this data that you're wearing now on my watch, it's telling me what my glucose is, you could reduce those highs and lows so you're still the same average, but the overall health is improved. And so just from a personal standpoint, Ernie, I couldn't agree more. That information improves health. And again, we're talking about bringing the information and the medicine to the patient.
Ron, may we take your story one step further?
Go for it.
If we take a look at the spikes, those times that you had a hemoglobin A1C that was 7 or 8, something higher, did you ever think about what you had just eaten, about the activity that you were in, what environment you were in?
At the time, no. I'd be lucky if I even knew that it was happening.
Precisely. If we can inform you, the patient, the employee, the family member, to associate these spikes along with some activity, now we've got a scientific study of one to better inform you to help you move to a healthier state. That is our goal in taking medicine to the patient.
That's great. So, there are a lot of employers, ourselves included, that love this idea of having a relationship with health information, having a relationship with the data, bringing the healthcare to the patient. And the idea of an on-site clinic, you mentioned before that the clinician is almost like an air traffic controller. They know the people, they know the details of the plan. They can sort of guide them in consuming health and not just treat the illness. A lot of employers are not necessarily large enough to have an on-site clinic. And I think maybe that void is where things like DPC have started to fill that void. But I'm curious to hear from you, someone who's a specialist who really knows all about this industry. For employers who are maybe not large enough to justify an on-site clinic, what kind of options are there for them?
Great question. May I give you 3 answers?
Hey, man, answer's free. Great.
We have 2 self-funded clients with 90 employees each. How do we make it work? The clinic is only open 4 hours a week. It's Wednesday mornings from 8 a.m. until 12 noon. That's it. However, employees have a remarkable ability to schedule their appointment when it's free because there's no copay, there's no deductible, and there's no wait. You go in at 9 o'clock, you're seen at 9 o'clock, you're out at 9:20. We respect the time of the patient. So even in a small employer, you can dial up the capacity in order to meet the need. Now, your question is, well, Ernie, what if I get sick on Thursday?
Right.
The clinic is open on Wednesday. Well, we ask that the employer never change their healthcare plan. You go to a minute clinic, you go to CVS, you go to urgent care, you go to something in order to meet that immediate need. But I'll tell you, most employees will move their appointment to where it is free and they can be seen on time. We pick up the majority of all the patients.
So, Ernie, I want to add one thing there. So the key thing I just learned is you're not taking away any benefits. This is an add-on benefit to already existing plan. So, like you said, most of these treatments, most of these procedures, most of these services are obviously not emergency. So people are scheduling appointments. So that's why it does make sense for that Wednesday morning. But if something happens to Johnny and he needs stitches, urgent care down the street's available on a Friday night. Makes sense.
You know what drives me crazy, too, is you have somebody who's offering a plan that covers things like urgent care, PCP, right? And then you say to them, hey, you should add on this additional benefit without reducing the other benefits. The short-sighted people, they look at that and they say, well, that's just an added cost. I'm looking to cut costs. And what they don't understand is the ROI that's affiliated or associated with having that Wednesday morning clinic, people going in, because those are people who aren't necessarily changing when they're visiting the physician. They're going to the physician for the first time, and they're catching things that could have escalated had they not gone in the first place.
Ron, you asked the question, how in the world can you take care to a smaller employer? I gave you one example. Even with 90 employees, it works. A second example is a consortium. That's where the FIA group would sponsor a clinic, and you would look at 3 other employers in the nearby. So it'd be on-site to FIA, but near-site to the other 2. So the 3 employers share a common clinic.
Got it. Sharing is caring.
It is. Number 3, and this is stunning, is e-health. Imagine in the FIA group having a room set aside where there is a medical assistant, a nurse, and Ron, you as the patient, but the doctor is remote. The doctor has a license in Massachusetts, but may not be in a state. We've got an electronic stethoscope that is 9 times more sensitive than the digital scope that you normally see, the tube around the doctor's neck. The dermoscope is 60 times more sensitive. It can look at the skin. It can look around the coloration. It can determine if it's carcinoma. The third is the otoscope. As the doctor peers into your ear, you see exactly what the doctor sees on a monitor. And if the doctor says, look, you're being aggressive with a Q-tip because your eardrum is shiny, you see it. And so when a patient walks away from this appointment, they think it is a better exam than they've ever had before. And so the idea of bringing a suitcase in with this equipment with a medical nurse and the doctor remote is the way that we've seen the most growth in the last 18 months.
Hey, so Ernie, my follow-up question, what Ron asked. In 10 years, what do you see CareHere doing? Where are you? What do you look like? What's the size? What's the services? Are we talking about, yep, we still have those on-site clinics, but now there's a deeper dive into wearable devices. What do you see 10 years from now?
I'd like for us to take risk. If we're able to manage the primary care and the medications which are on site, and we can then direct contract with imaging, radiology, with musculoskeletal, we are beginning to chip away and do this on a fixed price basis, a capitated basis. And if you do it in theory to all services, you have become a capitated, self-funded plan. If you introduce a captive to moderate the ebbs and flows, the spikes, and those kinds of things, and by stop loss, then you could have a health plan of 1,000 employees, a health plan of 500 employees. So taking risk, in essence, eliminating the insurance carrier, the ASO, to where you've got a TPA taking risk and you're managing the entire financial component of the healthcare plan because the care component is so dependable, so predictable. Number two, all this patient-reported devices, these remote patient monitoring that Ron was talking about with his glucometer, that is a rich database that needs to be mined through AI, through neural networks, et cetera, because if we can find areas beyond clinical, I'm talking about social determinants, I'm talking about the areas of town that we live, the restaurants that are available, the food sources that are available. Now healthcare goes beyond just clinical and financial. It's looking at lifestyle and how can the data, in order to work with the patient when they're willing, make a difference. That's where I see us going down the road.
Hey, Ernie, can I ask you a question? Just off the top of your head, what percentage would you say of employers are doing something? I'm not saying all this stuff on-site, the devices, the e-health, but just something. 5%, 10%, in your mind, because obviously you've been doing this for a long time, just how much opportunity is there? How much waste is there still? How many employers just don't even know that there's more than just having a preferred provider network? What percentage of our industry do you think just doesn't do any of this?
The employers who have 5,000 employees or more, there's 33% who've got an on-site something, safety nurse, occupational, an on-site clinic, according to Mercer. Once you go down to 1,000 employees or lower, that number drops to less than 5%.
Wow.
So the white field that is ready to be harvested, the opportunity is huge.
Now, can I get to the questions I really want to ask? There's two there's three, but I want to start with the first one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The newsletter. How'd this happen? I mean, you didn't just wake up one day and have 4,500 subscribers. I mean, what happened and why Saturday night? So if you could explain to me, what was the reason to do it? Why do you think it's been successful? And why 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on a Saturday night is when it gets delivered?
Okay. The newsletter is a hobby that is out of control.
Clearly.
The on-site clinic is my day job.
Right.
The newsletter is a give back. It is a give back to the industry. I purposely did not want a subscription fee, no advertising, no sponsorship. There is no money associated with it. It is a give back to the industry. We all look for ways that we can do something, and this is my something. But many years ago, I think 27 years ago, I began to clip articles of the newsletter and pass it around any newsletter and share it with employees. That later gave rise to email in the mid-1980s, and they began to share it with clients. And that was, at the time, I was an MGU underwriting stop loss. And as it grew, it needed to become more formal. In other words, a subscription base only if you wanted the newsletter. And over the years, it has grown to the current 4,500 by people requesting it. Now, sometimes spam and other kind of things get in the way, and they get dropped, and I'll get a note, and we'll put them back in and reactivate them. But if I were a TPA, if I was a stop-loss carrier, if I was a self-funded employer, what would I find interesting in the past week? That's what's included in the newsletter. Now, while the timing, it takes about 6 to 7 hours each week to assemble the newsletter.
And do you have a team of people that do it?
Yes, a team of one.
You? This is you?
Yes,
No, it's not.
yes,
Do not lie.
it is.
Ron, you believe this?
You know,
You personally spend 6 to 7 hours every week putting the newsletter together. You
That's a true statement.
get out of town. I don't know, Ron. I love Ernie. Really? That's amazing.
well, think of all the junk
Why?
he's got to trim away and not include. You know, all the photos he gets from
Find some
people. I mean,
intern.
come on.
Get some intern. We got some. Use Pat Santos here.
Oh, man. No, he said it's a hobby. He's loving it. You know, we should send him more information because he enjoys going through it so much.
All right, so the timing. What's the reason behind the timing?
Well, I normally get through sometime on Saturday. And
What? You do this on Saturdays yourself at home.
yes, yes, and yes.
Well, what if you have a Taekwondo tournament going on?
Well,
I'm just saying.
2 weeks ago, I was on a cruise with
So
no
you did
internet.
you did it on the cruise?
I did it
Ah.
before the cruise on a Thursday evening. I time it with my server. I've got an email service that will send it out. And so I always govern it to be 11 o'clock Eastern on Saturday night with a publication date of the following Monday. Unless the Monday is a holiday, like Labor Day, then it will be the following Tuesday.
But Saturday night, 11 o'clock, did you find that you get higher readership on Sunday morning? What do you think? Do a lot of people open it on Saturday night at 11 o'clock like I do and read it when they're at a bar? I could be at a bar. I could be at a play with my wife. I'm still going to read it.
Yeah, surprisingly, 11.5% open it on Saturday night. So 11.5% of 4,500 is almost 500 people.
Wow. Well, I'm one of them. That's me.
And I tell you and others, go get a life.
No, go get it. You're the guy who's putting it
7 hours
together.
on a Saturday.
You're telling us to get a life. I'm just reading it.
Takes one to know one, I guess.
I know, huh? So, Ernie, obviously, I brought up the Taekwondo. Just, my 4 children, ages 6, 6, 4, and 4, all take Taekwondo, and they love it. You've earned
Wonderful.
It's great. I think I'm going to start picking it up, too. They actually have Taekwondo at school, like literally at school. It's part of their curriculum. So it's pretty awesome. But what got you into it, and is this something you still do and you could continue doing?
Well, my son was 11, and he started it. About the third month, he said, Dad, there are a lot of dads who go with their sons to go through these classes. And guys, how would you respond to that kind of preface? And I said, well, David, I'm going to join you. And so we went through each of the 9 belts together. It took 6 years. My sensei was not point sparring. My sensei was a world champion in actual kickboxing, like you see in Brazil and inside the cage.
Yep.
And so he's not into this point sparring stuff. He wants to kick. So there would be times I would go home sore. But I went through the whole process, and here I am in my mid to late 50s fighting a couple of 20-year-olds in order to get my black belt.
That's awesome. This has been a great interview. Any last words for us? Anything you want to tell us? Any inspiring information you want to just share with our listening audience?
Absolutely. And this is a compliment to you and Ron on the FIA group. I have never seen an employer more engaged in the healthcare plan design, monitoring, and offering benefits back to the employees than FIA group. Every time you have talked about new benefit changes and the impact, a lot of them, most of them work, but some of them don't. My point is you learn from both, and I absolutely applaud the effect that you've been able to achieve. And this year, going to 0 for employee costs is stunning. It's amazing. I could learn so much from you.
Well, we appreciate those kind of words. I'm shocked.
Jeez,
But
high praise.
Ernie, I've always looked up to you for the many years we've been in the industry together. You're a great colleague. You're a friend. You're just a great person. And thank you so much for spending such a good amount of time with us today.
Yeah, back to clipping those articles.
Thank you for the honor.
Well, folks, Ernie, it's been great. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We truly appreciate it. On behalf of Ron Peck, Pat Santos, our producer, and our special guest, Ernie Clevenger, and I guess I should include myself, huh, Ron?
Sure, you're grateful.
And your co-host, Adam Russo, thank you so much for empowering your plans with the FIA Group. Have a great day.
Thank you.